Negligence liability is often broken down by the foreseeability of the plaintiff's injury. The case of Beul versus ASSE International examines liability when defendants violate their duty to act as a primary protector. ASSE International was a nonprofit that placed international students in exchange programs. The nonprofit contracted with the family of 16-year-old German student Kristen Beul to place her in Wisconsin for a year. The nonprofit's local representative connected Beul with the Bruce family. When Beul arrived in America, Beul was met by 40-year-old Mr. Bruce and his 13-year-old daughter. The local representative didn't meet Beul at the airport, briefly met with Beul once during her first month, and only checked in by phone a few times. Beul wasn't in private when they spoke, and Beul always said she was fine. The representative never spoke with Mrs. Bruce. 2 months later, Mr. Bruce raped Beul while they were home alone. Beul and Mr. Bruce then began a sexual relationship. 27 times Mr. Bruce waited until his daughter and wife were gone, and then reported Beul sick and absent from her high school so that he could have sex with her. At one point, Mr. Bruce took out a gun and threatened to kill himself if Beul ever told anyone about their relationship. 4 months into Beul's stay, Beul and Mr. Bruce told the representative that Mrs. Bruce was jealous of how much time Beul and Mr. Bruce spent together. Mr. Bruce invited the representative to dinner, but at dinner the representative didn't speak to Beul or Mrs. Bruce alone. The representative didn't notice anything wrong. The next month, Mrs. Bruce called the representative to place Beul with a new family because Mr. and Mrs. Bruce were getting divorced. Beul refused to leave Mr. Bruce's home. A sheriff's deputy had to remove her. In front of Mr. Bruce, the deputy asked Beul if she and Mr. Bruce had sexual relations. Beul said no. While Beul was living with the representative for the next few days, the representative never asked about Beul and Mr. Bruce. The representative called Beul's school and learned for the first time about Beul's absences. Beul and Mr. Bruce kept in touch. Beul claimed she was in love with him, felt they were engaged, and sent him love letters. A couple of months later, Mrs. Bruce found some of Beul's letters and alerted authorities. A sheriff's deputy spoke to Mr. Bruce. The next day, Mr. Bruce killed himself. Beul suffered, quote, serious psychological harm, unquote, from Mr. Bruce's suicide. Beul sued ASSE International for negligence. The jury awarded Beul $1.1 million in damages, but adjusted her award after finding her 41% responsible. The nonprofit appealed.